the political parties' primaries. Politicians are living up to the game with intrigues, controversies, and confusions. Now, the news broke last night that one of the major political parties, as the PDP, has thrown open the primaries for the presidential ticket open, and it's now everybody's game. So, well, that was the outcome of the party's 96th National Executive Committee, that's NEC meeting that held on Wednesday. And that will form the basis of our conversation as Kingsley introduces our next set of guests.
All right, two familiar faces also on Good Morning Nigeria. First, let's welcome Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. He's of the Department of Mass Communication at Bayes University in Abuja. It's, of course, a critical area of specialization, this political communication, and a former political correspondent for many years for the Guardian newspaper. Adeniyi, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
My pleasure, thanks.
Also here with us in the studios is Ezenwa Nwagu. Ezenwa Nwagu is Chairman Partners for Electoral Reform and convener Say No Campaign Nigeria. Ezenwa Nwagu, it's a pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, the issue on the table has to do with the open presidential primaries for the People's Democratic Party. In other words, the party is saying no zoning of the presidency. So every and anyone who is able to pick up the party's expression of interest and nomination forms at 40 million naira combined is free to contest the primaries. What does this tell us about the politics of the moment and even the politics of the future? Let's begin with Abiodun Adeniyi.
All right. Thanks for inviting me, and good morning, viewers. I think there are so many ways to unpack this. Because there's a background to zoning, and of course, it was re-emphasized in the discourse of the evolution of Nigeria's history and the practicality of it. In the build-up to democracy in 1999, where our forefathers, our leaders were talking about zoning, we're talking about rotation. And the essence was very clear, that we're a multi-ethnic country, we're divergent, we're multicultural, we're essentially plural. And to bring about integration, inclusion, which democracy is all about, to foster a sense of belonging, we need to have a situation where offices are rotated between regions, between sections of the country. And it's not just limited to the presidency, but also, permeating the dimensions of all political offices, including the governorship, including senatorial, But in the last couple of years, the emphasis has always been on the national, which is the presidency, as the case could be. And that's why, in the build-up to 2023 again, it's rearing its head, The argument is always that we're a fragile democracy, and in a fragile democracy, you need to erect building blocks, so that it will not collapse, so that it can sustain the democratic experience that is ordinarily nascent, that's ordinarily growing, which is not which is not strong yet, like we'll see in other forms of democracy. And probably we need to also emphasize the point that, we are a federal country, we're a federal republic, and in federations, which is largely a preponderant system of administering plural systems, plural societies, are largely administered through federalism, just to give a sense of belonging. And of course, zoning is not necessarily ingrained in our constitution, but the spirit is evident there, through the principle of federal character. So overall, we've adopted it, as a gentleman agreement, as a convention among the political parties, to build, to bring about a sense of integration, so that no section will feel you will feel marginalized, because marginalization is always central, to complaints of ethnicities in this country. That's the history, really. But now we have moved maybe 20 to 23 years into the democratic experiment, and maybe another narrative is about to change, and I think the narrative is gradually changing, beginning from the experiment by Governor El-Rufai in Kaduna in 2019, where, he chose somebody of the same religion with him to be deputy governor. It was an experiment, I say, because a lot of people thought that doing that would mean that he was going to lose the election, but he didn't lose it. He won the election, and there's no evidence to show that the governor, discriminated against the section that didn't come up as deputy governor in Kaduna. There's no evidence, which means that, we are probably overemphasizing something we should begin to de-emphasize, which probably tells me that, Kaduna might just be, an ecosystem where we can use to represent or to make projection into the central space, realizing that we are having countries in the world, that are not reckoning with zoning. In the United States, for instance, nobody would ordinarily talk about zoning, because it has grown as a democracy, it has matured as a democracy, and of course, what they are concerned about is performance, excellence, issues, and that's what we're seeing manifesting. It is possible that we're probably getting to that level as well, despite the controversy, despite the threats, menacing comments by people. And PDP, rightly or wrongly, may be showing that courage by throwing their presidency open, may be showing that courage, may later be seen as a pathfinder, as a party that is leading, in changing the narrative around the question of zoning. So that's how I want to see it. And of course, we know there's always, once upon a time, beginning a story, there was a time where the sing-song of zoning was high, and there's probably a time now, maybe we're at that time now, where the sing-song is on the decline.
Professor
That's
Dede,
where I want to
Professor
look at it.
I thank you. I thank you. And I really wish that, the scenario you painted is really who we are as a people. I wish that was the practical, aspect of our lives. But let me bring my brother Ezenwa Nwagu, who's chairman for Partners for Electoral Reform and convener Say No Campaign Nigeria. We're looking at, the throwing open of the primaries, which, the PDP, has just done. And I'm asking what might be, this is an internal, politics, but it's also within their constitution, as they say, zoning is enshrined within their constitution, but regardless, they have made it open. What will be the implication of that? One, on the process for PDP, and then secondly, might there be any legal implication at the end of it all?
Well, so legality will be predicated on constitutionality. If it is a constitutional issue, then you can drive. But you are riding on political morality, which the PDP itself foisted on the country. They are the owners of zoning. They are the ones who thought it was going to solve the challenges that we faced, and then getting to the point where the agitation that it has not gone round, and then you now say, oh, let's throw it open. But it's about winning elections. It's as simple as that. It has nothing to do. The PDP is considering winning, taking back power. It has to be what they call pragmatic now. It has to come to that point where it's not moralizing. It has to be thinking more technically in terms of how do we win this election. And when we win the election, then we can begin to have this other conversation. But you see that on the other side is clear already that we want to go this way. We want to go this way. We think that is what is right at this time and all of that. But what will collapse this democracy will not be whether it is zoning or not zoning. It will be whether this democracy works for the Nigerian people at the end of the day. Because if you are governing a space and you look at the statistics, every day more and more people are not interested in coming out to vote. And this has no tribal marks. Everywhere, look at the voter registration statistics that just came out, you will find out that people are losing interest in this democracy. And that is because when we zoned, the promises that were made to the people were not fulfilled. Whether it's the man from, because at the end of the day, the governor of my state is not from Kara Namoda. He is from my own state. Why has he not been able to deliver for my own people? Why has the Yoruba governor, why has he not translated to better life for the people who live there? I think we should get away from this. For me, which is where I've always been. But it's, you know, it's politically correct to say, oh, take it to our place. There's an emotional thing about it if your brother is the president. But in reality, you then need to ask, how does it make the price of Gary in the market, you know, cheaper? How does it make bread cheaper for the ordinary people? Once democracy is not doing that, then the zoning thing is an elite contraption that is designed to share power among themselves. And the ordinary people are not in that conversation. And that, for me, is the bigger challenge. So it's about us. You know, power has not come to us. We are dispossessed. But where is us? Where did we sit down to have a conversation? The minister is first and foremost a minister, minister of Federal Republic. And our constitution has so put it that a minister has to represent a state, right? So if he is representing a state, it means that he's supposed to be directing. He's supposed to take from us and then take to the center and then bring back from the center to us. But that's not been happening. People represent themselves. When it then comes to democratizing the benefits, they talk about, they start, when they are dispossessed, they talk about zoning. When it is about when they are benefiting, look at the restructuring conversation that is going on. Suddenly it has disappeared. It's not in the front burner anymore because it's about them. So the Nigerian people need to reshape the conversation in a way that you hold people accountable. If you are going to be my local government chairman, I am the one to design what you are going to be doing for us. We have to change that narrative.
They shouldn't be confused with this.
There is it's a deliberate thing every year. So who is zoned? Who is zoning to what? To where? We've done this for 23 years. And yet, we are clearly not where we are supposed to be. There is anger, there is frustration. Okay? The elite of the country needs to come to that point where they are asking, is this democracy going to be working for the people? And I think that is the bigger question for me, rather than staying there. As a chief of my town, I should be able to say, bring it to my place. Let my people. But I have lived there all my life. I have not seen the benefit. Government is in absentia. Government is imperial. Government is not working for the people of these areas, whether they are governed by their own people or people from outside. And so what is supposed to be zoning? Zoning in simple language, in ordinary person's language, is help your own people. When is your turn? Help your own people. When it's to my turn, let me help my own people. Maybe over a period of time, we will have helped our people. But nobody is helped everywhere. That's the challenge. Nobody has been helped.
Okay. As I want to go, thank you very much. The perspective you've brought is equally interesting. You're looking at the ends or the goals of democracy being the delivery of public goods that, as you say, is in short supply. We'll come back to that. But just to also indicate that we saw zoning in the Second Republic from 1979 to 1983, when the then NPN made that the legacy of the party to the country. I remember K.O. Mbadiwe's famous comment in those days was that the NPN was zoning to unzone. That's to say, you are zoning different offices in order to ensure that there was a clear federation and a federating sense of a nation. But let's look at also the practical reality. Yes, people will talk about zoning, but ahead of the party primaries, you often find contestants coming from different zones of the country. That's to say, the presidential primaries. They will say, yes, we are zoning, but at the end of the day, the party or the parties do not restrain any qualified member from participating in the primaries. But what happens is that the party oligarchs already know to whom they want to give the ticket. And it's okay, yes, contest, but whether you will get a vote or otherwise is a different consideration. So we have seen that happen time and time again. My question is going to Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Yes, you spoke nicely about all the characteristics of a diverse nation and so on and so forth. But some persons will also say that, look, electorate or electors now for primaries, some of them, in most cases, get leveraged by a lot of money. A lot of money. So it's just quick gains. What is this candidate, this delegate? How much are you collecting from this? We're going to see a lot of that move around. Absolutely. No question about that. Rather than saying, oh, okay, this is the gentleman who is most competent to represent us and wed us together as a country and then help deliver the public goods. So are we not, is it not just a miasma of ideas and issues that we seem unable to immediately fathom and say, let the parties sort themselves out?
Well, it's a problem. There are so many, your poser is really loaded, and there are so many ways to unpack it, really. But first, we know what our democracy still is, and oftentimes I want to argue that maybe it's a stage of development where people's thoughts, are guided or are determined, by the question or issues around prebendalism. They just see it as a festival, a time for harvest, this is a time for me to make some more bucks, And of course, if you're not careful, at the end of the day, it is the one with the largest war chest that will always win. It's not necessarily about merit, not necessarily about ideas. The one with the largest war chest won, or the one, that will emerge, through a consensual arrangement, indirect consensual. Yes, there will be election, but before the election, the delegates will have been teleguided by resources, teleguided by their leaders. That's what's going to happen. I mean, there are no questions about it. And of course, the one with ideas, the brilliant one, will be shoved aside. That's the tragedy of our system. And of course, we need fundamental value orientation before we can get out of there. Fundamental value of orientation, a deliberate, strategic behavior change communication over time, lasting over time, before we can make improvement in that area. But yeah, let's come back to still on the question of zoning. There's a question I asked recently. I said in 1999, there was this understanding, like has been argued in many circles, that a Southwesterner should be produced as president. And of course, President Obasanjo came up, won the election, and he ruled for 8 years. And the question to ask really is this: how did Obasanjo's emergence as president from the Southwest, how did it benefit people of the Southwest? How did it make Southwest, a modern region with developments and all of that? Yar'Adua came after him. How did Yar'Adua coming benefited the people of the Northwest, people of Katsina? How did President Jonathan's emergence as president benefited the people of the South? Or President Buhari, how has it benefited the people of the Northwest? Oftentimes we just see that, the benefits actually still revolve around patronage, the thinking around patronage, compensation, the false sense of belonging that my person is there. It's a false sense of belonging. And if there's any benefit at all, they are just transient benefits. You are recognized, you are patronized, but it hardly permeates the dimensions of, it hardly meets all the indices of development, related to your area, Professor or even to the nation at large.
I have to pause you and allow SN1 to say his few last words.
The template for running this country in the last 40 years has remained static. And it has no tribal marks. It is about deregulation, commercialization, privatization, monetization. So whether it is north or south, what has not been sold, the ones coming will sell. They are going to sell. So there are no economic conversations that is going on. What is always going on is a political conversation. How has this country been run in the last 40 years? Whether it is an Igbo man or a Yoruba man. Is anybody building houses for the poor? Do you have Jack-on-Day estates? Do you have Jack-on-Day schools? You have private estates coming up in Abuja. but you have no public building to challenge the housing deficits that you have. So the big conversation for Nigeria as we face 2023 is to have a people-centered conversation that will be primed around a change, a real change in how we are going to
will have
this.
another edition to consider this perspectives in broader. I mean, the topic in broader perspectives. It's quite interesting, the points that you are making. Ezenwa Nwagu and his chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform and convener, Say No Campaign Nigeria. Thank you, Ezenwa. Thank you for your thoughts. I also like to appreciate Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Mass Communication Department, Bayes University here in Abuja, and also a public analyst. I also like to appreciate you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And that's it on Good Morning Nigeria again for today and this week. We'd like to thank you very much for your viewership, for joining us on this program. I am Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak. Do have a great weekend.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola saying look after yourselves and enjoy your weekend.
Welcome. It's time for another interesting package of
Everything Music.
Angelina, you dey cool in my temperature. If you call, I go come deliver.
This is Stocky Movies.
In times of old, the world was full of wonder.
Welcoming you to your weekend for today.